The story begins with a little surreal introduction of the protagonist and the environment within his home. He is a young adult who still lives with his mother, having no prospects for the future, eating and sleeping till late, not doing much else with his life. His mother is sick and tired of him, thinking of him as a bum and wanting him to leave her house. She gives him a final ultimatum of having 5 days before he leaves, changing his ways and his life for good. His mother looks like some sort of a monster depicting how the son views her. After this little intro and understanding what kind of person the protagonist is, he gets a random call from a friend called Radic, whom he hasn't spoken to for over 2 years. Radic is surprised that the protagonist has finally answered his phone after such a long time of no communication, feeling a little hurt that the protagonist has been ghosting him. Either way, the protagonist explains a little bit of his situation with the mother, with Radic offering him a job. He says that he works in a factory, and lucky for him, it has opened up a position which he can vouch for the protagonist to be hired for. The protagonist, not being too trusting of Radic, reluctantly takes the offer, going to finally meet Radic after such a long time within the factory. Radic seems a little too attached and as if he deeply missed the protagonist, feeling betrayed and now being super happy that he can spend some time with his friend. It seems as if the protagonist used to be part of a group of friends with Radic, but he felt that they were toxic, especially someone called Radic. In here, Radic starts blaming the protagonist for being the sensitive one with the problems who simply drops people and doesn't care about them, even though it seems Radic was too overbearing and toxic to the protagonist. All the protagonist wanted was some boundary and respect, but instead of understanding him, Radic belittles his feelings, thoughts, and boundary, telling him he should appreciate him for giving him this job and revealing why the protagonist left this group to begin with. It seems to have been so bad that he even went to therapy to help him overcome the trauma that they put him through. Either way, this conversation slowly turning into an argument, with Radic blaming the protagonist and gaslighting him. The protagonist leaves, not engaging in the conversation anymore, saying that he will see him later. As he leaves, we see a visual representation of the protagonist's inner thoughts in the shape of a therapist sitting in front of him in an office and criticizing him for what he said and did. His inner self is his biggest critic, making him rethink his decisions and actions and showing how much the gaslighting and manipulation from his friends impacted him. After this little internal altercation, the protagonist sleeps the night and goes to work the next day. This time around, Radic is a lot more forward and unhinged, making very discomforting and unbearable physical jokes about the protagonist's body and his backside. Jokes that wouldn't fly by until someone gets punched. Despite the protagonist's consistent requests for Radic to stop joking like this, he dismisses it as the protagonist being sensitive and not having a sense of humor. Even though Radic dismisses them as jokes, he seems to be genuinely attracted to the protagonist, even saying how he used to check out the protagonist in class when they were younger, and how he would prefer to walk behind him to check out his behind. Eventually, as this painful shift comes to an end, Radic opens a box full of beers and pressures the protagonist to drink with him, even though he doesn't like drinking. The more the protagonist tries to explain and say no, the more pushy and manipulative Radic becomes. He tries to dig deep under his skin, telling him how he is letting him down and how he stuck his neck out for him, getting him this job, while the protagonist doesn't respect him. He pushes too much, gaslighting him and guilt-tripping him, blaming him and name-calling him, even threatening that he would tell on him so that he would lose the job. But eventually, the protagonist says that he would leave if Radic continues, which ends the conversation. Radic seems to have ulterior motives, wanting a physical relationship with the protagonist, even though he keeps on saying that they are bros and friends. He makes discomforting jokes and makes a lot of questionable comments. In an uncomfortable conversation, with Radic making it difficult all the time, the protagonist eventually leaves, while Radic clearly seems irritated and angry. In his alone time, the protagonist has some more inner conversation. His inner critic explains his thoughts and feelings are valid, and guilt and pressure he is being enforced is overriding his boundaries. But no is simply enough, and he shouldn't feel bad or sad for feeling uncomfortable. As he sleeps the night, he goes to work the next day. He finds a flashlight to navigate the factory, as there is no light. He finds Radic, who has his usual smug attitude, talking down to the protagonist. After a laborious day of packing the boxes, Radic tells him to not bail this time and actually spend some time with him. As he follows him to the employee room, he is shocked to see Radic Radic has set up a romantic table with candles and champagne bottles and more beer cans. This is already weird. Radic has a crush on his friend. The protagonist seems to be straight anyway, as in previous conversations, Radic mentioned how many girlfriends the protagonist had. The protagonist still refuses to drink, which causes Radic to go on another meltdown, trying so hard to make the protagonist feel like the bad guy, just for choosing not to drink and do something with his own body that he is not comfortable with. It seems to me as if Radic is trying to get the protagonist drunk to take advantage of him. Looking around the table, it's clear Radic has an addiction to alcohol. There are multiple empty beer cans thrown around, and he has been wobbly the whole day, as if he is drunk or hungover. The protagonist makes it clear no means no, and that he won't let Radic pressure him into drinking, and he draws the line that if he pushes him anymore, he will simply leave and never talk to Radic again. That makes it clear to Radic that he cannot push him anymore. That's when he finally opens up and confesses to the protagonist that he actually has started dating men and that he has a boyfriend. He apologizes if he was acting weird and explains things haven't been easy for him. He then asks the protagonist how he has been doing with life when he reveals that his mother has given him only 5 days to get enough money before leaving the house. That's when Radic offers him his place, that he could crash over until he finds a place of his own. The protagonist foolishly accepts his offer, even though Radic has been acting really weird and borderline pushy, even physically. While going out of the factory, waiting for Radic to finish drinking his last beer before joining him, he has a quick inner thought, with the inner voice telling him that he needs strength for what is to follow. And that proves to be right, as he realizes that he made a bad choice. As he sits on the couch, Radic gets too close for comfort, talking about adult content with the protagonist, as if to get him excited. The protagonist feeling very uncomfortable, Radic pushes more and more and becomes very explicit. When all of a sudden he says that the protagonist is living in his house, doing a job that he found him, and that he would be nothing without him when he tries to force himself on the protagonist. The protagonist manages to push him off easily, especially as he is drunk, when Radic goes on a rant, insulting and belittling him. That's when the protagonist finally stands up for himself and draws his boundaries very clearly, saying how Radic is toxic and abusive, and how he wants to feel needed and expects gratitude in return for forcing his help on people. He leaves the apartment and blocks Radic's number and quits the job, never to talk to him again. This feels difficult at first for the protagonist, even questioning if he made the right choice, as after all, Radic was a childhood friend of his. But nonetheless, as time passes, he finds more friends and feels validated for the decision that he made, realizing how toxic Radic truly was. And on that note, we achieve the best ending, where the protagonist stands his ground and validates his boundaries, that they are not cruelty or insensitivity, but the right that anybody has. In the second ending, if the protagonist doesn't find it in himself to confront Radic, he runs into the bathroom and locks the door. As Radic is furious, shouting and screaming that the protagonist doesn't show him respect or gratitude for what he has done for him, he finds a split second to run out of the apartment. The protagonist goes back to the mother's house and asks just for a few more days to get on his feet. At first, the fear and trauma from Radic makes him shake, yet he refuses to answer his calls. He questions himself if he was the one at fault, and maybe Radic changes. But eventually, he finds different friends that don't mock him or laugh at him, but instead, they support him. He starts letting self-respect grow and fear fade, and the friends that he finds make him become a better person and realize that he should have cut off Radic much earlier. On the other hand, if the protagonist becomes too scared and Radic breaks down the door to the bathroom and catches him, things become very different. The protagonist becomes Radic's plaything, who does unthinkable things to him. He lives in fear and trauma and under manipulation and Radic's control, who is an alcoholic and a beater. He feels living in this horrible apartment is better than the park's bench, and that unfortunately is the ending in this scenario, something that should never be the case, as there are always different options. In another ending, the protagonist lets his anger take over, taking the life of Radic while he is drunk, being flat on the ground. He lets the bottled up anger from the previous days and 2 years ago finally explode and take it all out. It would be better to speak up and show anger in the right amount and right time, preventing it from exploding like this, such as a loud no or slamming the door or simply walking away without entertaining the other person, or simply not just being polite all the time. Unfortunately now, he has to tell the authorities, and that could result in him getting punished by law. This was a really uncomfortable game, honestly, with an unsettling story, and it makes it worse that it's based on Dev's personal experiences. But nonetheless, it is an important game to show others going through similar experiences that they are not alone and things like this could happen to anyone. As always, it's been your host Star. Thanks for being here, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.